Lori's murder trial 2 years ago.
The trial itself is currently expected to last 5 to 6 weeks. A Draper man is now facing several charges after police say he sped away from officers acting like he was in a video game. KSL.com reports police tried to pull over the 19-year-old in February for driving without a license plate, but he took off. Charging documents say he then posted videos on social media claiming he was in the video game Grand Theft Auto. In one video, the documents claim he said, "I'm in GTA, bro," and he held up a black handgun. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. More tariffs are set to go into effect later this week. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says she wouldn't go into the details on the nature of the tariffs, but said the president will announce them on Wednesday.
I will let the president make the announcement on Wednesday, but it's certainly going to ensure that there's reciprocity and the American people are treated fairly.
We do know that President Trump is imposing these reciprocal tariffs worldwide and is calling Wednesday Liberation Day for U.S. businesses, but many businesses say they will have to pass on the higher costs to the consumers. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 314 points, the S&P up 12, and the NASDAQ down 89 points. Coming up, get ready for a wet commute tonight. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 1:02.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. In October of 1985, a woman named Cherie Warren left work at a busy Salt Lake City office
to meet her estranged husband at a downtown auto dealership.
She never made it home. Cherie's car surfaced weeks later in Las Vegas.
In the parking lot of a hotel casino.
No one knows how it got there.
Strange. It was strange.
Both Cherie's estranged husband and her boyfriend raised suspicion for investigators.
I kind of thought that he might have done something.
But no arrests were ever made. In Cold Season 3, we dig into double lives, make new connections in the case, and examine the difficulty raised by reasonable doubt.
We want answers just as much as anyone else.
They have creeps like that now too, so nothing's changed.
That's the new Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, now available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Mountain America's low-rate auto loans. Here's Ricky Meese.
All clear on the Valley freeways. If you're traveling I-15, that's also a very good drive in progress, both directions in Weber, Davis, Salt Lake, and Utah counties. Our main secondaries, no accidents reported at this time. Don't miss Mr. Max Buy One, Get One for 100 suit sale. Suits starting at $299 in a variety of colors and patterns. Available at all 9 Mr. Mac locations with free alterations. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
A high of 61 today and rain tonight starting around 4 o'clock. It could turn into snow overnight. Tomorrow, a high of 46 is expected, and then the week will just get warmer and drier from there. A high of 48 on Wednesday, 52 Thursday. Right now, it's mostly cloudy and 54 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Utah's top political experts break down the first 100 days of the new administration and discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Liberation Day. It's what President Donald Trump is calling Wednesday, April 2nd. Why? Because it's the day he says when the U.S. will see a reduction in all trade imbalances.
Hold on, Rusty. Hold on.
Well, I haven't even finished the opening line.
I immediately have questions.
Okay.
What is it that we are being liberated from? Affordable vehicles? Cheap imports? What are we being freed from?
We're being freed from reasonable policy decisions, and we're going to some that I completely don't understand. Now, there's a lot of uncertainty about what is going to come, and that's what we're going to get into. So welcome to Inside Sources. I'm your host, Rusty Cannon, here with Taylor Morgan, who I want to get through the next line without you interrupting me. Can I get through the next line?
I'm sorry, okay. Rusty. I'm fired up to talk about this.
I could tell.
So please, yeah.
All right. It's uncertainty that's contributed to the last several days of the stock market and prices back and forth. Let's listen to what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said about coming up on Wednesday.
I will let the president make the announcement on Wednesday, but it's certainly going to ensure that there's reciprocity and the American people are treated fairly.
All right, so that's what she teed it up as. Let's also listen to, this is ABC's Trevor Ault talking about what might be coming this week.
You could see prices rising pretty quickly in a vast array of industries: electronics, fresh produce, pharmaceuticals, clothing, footwear, and much more. And in fact, in some instances, we've already seen these prices rise. Take home prices, for example. The National Association of Home Builders says that in anticipation of steel and aluminum tariffs, the cost to build a new home has already risen more than $9,000.
Wow.
Okay, so you have a lot coming. Now, the next soundbite I wanted to play, I played it on a previous segment that you and I were doing the show together, and this is from 1982, from President Ronald Reagan when he was doing radio addresses back then. Back then, obviously, he would do a lot of radio addresses, and there's actually on YouTube, you can find this if you look for it, where he talks about his thoughts on how tariffs work.
We're in the same boat with our trading partners. If one partner shoots a hole in the boat, does it make sense for the other one to shoot another hole in the boat? Some say yes and call that getting tough. Well, I call it stupid. We shouldn't be shooting holes. We should be working together to plug them up. We must strengthen the boat of free markets and fair trade so it can lead the world to economic recovery and greater political stability.
Rusty.
Yes.
Did the Gipper just call President Trump stupid?
He did not directly,
okay.
No.
And the tariffs are stupid.
Neither did I, but what he's talking about is the idea of being stupid.
Yeah.
And I thought the analogy, when I found that, that summed up my feelings on this subject perfectly.
Now, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what I see President Trump doing at this point is just shooting holes in the boat. And we'll go through the analogy whether that boat is his presidency or the economy or just good policy. But I thought what Reagan said was correct. It's like if you and I are in a boat together, and we obviously want the boat to stay afloat and go faster, so to speak. What good does it me to say, and I shoot a hole in the boat, and you go, you know what, Rusty, that's wrong. I'm going to shoot a bigger hole in the boat. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Pretty soon, Rusty, you don't have a boat, and everybody is swimming. Right?
Exactly.
Now, okay, but one caveat, one thing I heard Ronald Reagan say as part of that analogy, shooting holes in the boat with tariffs, tariffs are holes in the boat. He qualified that as fair trade. Do you think it is reasonable to argue that the Trump administration is imposing tariffs because trade partners have not been engaging in quote-unquote fair trading practices?
I think that's very fair of you to say. I think you could be completely right. Yes. I think a lot of people, including myself, aren't aware of what tariffs are in place now as our goods go out to other countries.
Yeah.
Like we talked about on the air the other day, this massive tariff that is on U.S. dairy products, of all things, into Canada. It was like ridiculous. It was like 300%.
Yeah.
Like those things a lot of people aren't aware of. And I understand if he wants to, push back on that. Yeah. But I don't see how this is going to be effective where he's going with this hip shot. And then what we're going to talk about in the segment is the uncertainty that this is engendering. Because what he's talked about is certain tariffs that would either be enacted, that are proposed, or that he's already canceled. And so there's that back and forth, that uncertainty.
Yeah, all
that's
that
roiling
uncertainty.
The markets.
Yeah. Now, I am all for trying to use measures like tariffs to deal with unfair trade practices, or what I think could be argued as being unfair. For example, the tariff on milk from the U.S. to Canada. I mean, that shouldn't exist. If we're trading partners and we believe in free trade, then that seems unreasonable and unfair for Canada to do that.
Yeah.
And I understand why President Trump would want to respond in kind with reciprocity on that kind of a tariff. But Rusty, I just don't know what we gain when it comes to partners like Canada and others.
Mm-hmm.
China, I think, is a totally different set of circumstances, right? The uncertainty is so difficult, though, because, we're going to talk about this later in the show, Rusty. We're going to talk about housing affordability here in Utah.
Yeah.
But if you're telling me that these tariffs have already increased the price of a new home by $9,000, that is going to hit young Utahns disproportionately hard.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that. That's a lot to ask.
Yeah, and I think time will tell whether this policy works. And maybe I'm being too near-term focused to where people worry about what is just in front of them. And you could maybe make a valid argument that, in 2 to 3 years, this is all going to be, he's going to be proven right that this works. But is the pain that you're going to go through in the meantime worth it, or can you survive it politically? Because it's going to not only affect you, but it's going to affect all the down ballot races.
Yeah.
And you cause all kinds of problems aside from the policy itself. I'm not aware of any historical example showing where tariffs really worked at all.
Yeah.
I mean, some argue that tariffs are a lot of what caused the Depression in the 30s. I mean, you can go back and forth on the validity of that argument. But there's other instances, if you just go back and study, where there is really not a single good case to where tariffs have worked. And that's what I worry about. Because the people that pay the short-term price are you and I and everyone else.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't see it. So as an example, this is what I think a lot of the uncertainty people are worried about. This is a list that was published in one of the news outlets, and the title was "See All the Tariffs Trump Has Enacted, Threatened, and Canceled." Meaning, there's 3 different categories.
It's got to be a very long article there, Russ.
Well, it's not a long, but this list won't take too long. Just let me be really quick. Goods not compliant with the USMCA, that's been enacted on March 4th, 25%. Blanket tariffs on China enacted March 4th, 20%. Energy not compliant with the USMCA from Canada, enacted March 6 of 10%. And then there's some others there. But then he's delayed the goods compliant with USMCA of 25%. That was going to go into effect April 2nd. That has been delayed. Reciprocal tariffs are proposed for April 2nd, unknown quantity. Agricultural goods proposed for April 2nd, unknown quantity. Lumber proposed, we think, for April 2nd, unknown quantity. Copper, computer chips, pharmaceuticals, all unknown, 25% plus. Automobiles, we talked about that last week. Blanket tariffs for the European Union is proposed at 25%, unknown date. Then there's some others here. Blanket tariffs proposed through nations buying oil from Venezuela, proposed, unknown implementation date. All of that, nobody knows. Where apparently, as we look at the news outlets now, as we're on the air, we really won't know any of this until Wednesday.
Right.
Set to have some press conferences before then. We don't know what's going to come, and I think that's the back and forth with the market.
Yeah, the uncertainty in the market, it makes it really difficult for businesses to justify, investment and expansion, growth in this kind of a market, when there's so much uncertainty, Rusty, and so much that we don't know. As you were going through those list of, prospective tariffs, there are so many that we can't yet quantify. The impact, for example, lumber, the importation of lumber coming from Canada. My understanding is that most of our new homes, at least here in Utah, most of that construction is dependent upon imported lumber.
It is, yeah.
That is going to have a huge impact on our ability to build affordable housing here in the state of Utah.
Yeah. And I remember once being in Idaho and seeing the massive amount of lumber just from that Idaho channel coming down on railways into Utah.
Yeah.
I think it is naive to say that we can make everything we need here in the United States.
Yeah.
It's just not the case. We have to pull stuff from other countries to make reasonable price products here.
Now, not to go too broad here, Rusty, but this comes down to conservatism versus populism on this kind of trade policy. I have kind of been in the camp trying to not be too worried by thinking maybe, hopefully, President Trump is doing this to gain leverage. He loves a good deal, Rusty. The president loves making a good deal. Is there any hope that this could ultimately just be more of that, more leverage to force deals with our partners?
It could. The problem with playing chicken is knowing when to flinch. And I think that's where we all are. We're wondering who's going to flinch first.
A lot of holes in the boat.
Exactly. Just more analogies for me. All right, next. President Trump has been shy in his frustration, has not been shy, I should say, in his frustration with judges. We're going to talk about that next.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission. Free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Did you hear? A recent stash of $10 gold Liberty coins from the 1800s has been found. These gorgeous gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck in the late 1800s, and less than 200 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this gold find an incredible opportunity. Call 1-800-917-4635, and you are guaranteed a $10 gold Liberty coin minted by the U.S. Mint in the 1800s. But with extremely limited availability, you must call now. These gold Liberty coins from the 1800s are still in uncirculated condition. That is history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-917-4635. Call now and you'll receive a free American Coin Collector's Bonus Package, a $40 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-917-4635 now to secure your $10 gold Liberty coins dated from the 1800s before they sell out. That's 1-800-917-4635.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, do it now. Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As President Trump continues his push for federal judges who rule against him to be impeached, Senate Republicans have a warning. Don't try it. Even Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley said it's not appropriate to impeach a judge just because the president disagrees with their opinion. Rusty Cannon, that news, breaking news in that sense that
Yes.
It's not okay to impeach a judge just because they disagree with you. It turns out that is a warning coming from Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley to President Trump. However, in the House, Rusty, as House Republicans tend to be a little bit rowdier than their Republican colleagues in the Senate, the House, specifically House Republicans, are still moving forward with plans to restrict the judiciary, even though they might be exploring ways to maybe not impeach judges, but to restrict them, to punish them, some other maybe softer approaches when it comes to dealing with judges who disagree with the president. Immediate reactions, Rusty, what do you know?
My immediate reaction is find another topic. Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is the wrong road to go down, and let me explain why.
The wrong road for President Trump or for
House Republicans.
Okay, please.
Yes. So just a short time ago, I'm going to say 8 months ago, 9 months ago, we could make the exact same argument on the other side of the coin, meaning there were issues that President Biden was pushing through. One that comes to mind, student loan debt forgiveness. He had absolutely no authority to do it, and judges were stopping him, and then he blatantly would say, I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore the courts. I dare you. I'm just going to continue to do this. It drove everyone on the right side of the aisle, including myself, completely nuts. You can't do that. And now to come back and just 8 months later say, I disagree with a lower court's judge decision, which I understand. I'm just as frustrated as everybody else. You can't then just say, well, let's just throw them out. That is not the way it works, because if we were not in charge, meaning Republicans, and it was the other way, go back a year, we would have loved a lower court judge that would have said, hey, I'm stopping this act XYZ or this path that President Biden is going down. We would have hailed them as a hero.
Right.
And now we're just flipping. It's just, I think, completely hypocritical.
Yeah.
And not only that, there's no way anything like this is going to happen. The only thing I could see making a reasonable argument, which is what Chuck Grassley is going to do in the Senate, is have a hearing about the applicability of a lower court judge doing a nationwide injunction. It's my understanding, and again, I'm not an attorney. If Greg was on here, he could tell us and set us straight. The validity of a lower court judge making a ruling that then affects things nationwide, because I think it is absolutely valid, and I am just as fired up as everybody else about the obvious strategy of anybody to go pick a judge in the jurisdiction where they'll rule there, because you can forum shop.
Got it.
You get them to rule your way, and then you've got it tied up for months.
Okay.
That is absolutely a valid strategy, and it's wrong.
Right.
But you know what? It's the way that it currently is. I know that's their strategy is, hey, you get a ruling, whether it's, the one judge that talked about banning transgenders from the military service and all of that will now be tied up in court for months.
Yeah.
This now with Boasberg, if I say it right, is going to be tied up in court possibly for months. It is a delay tactic, and it's the only route that they have, and it's absolutely frustrating because they know they can forum shop, get a ruling they agree with, and you tie them up for months.
Yeah.
Now that is what you should attack. That is what you should go through and say, listen, let's find a way to make the appeals process speedier. Maybe if it's a nationwide injunction, you can go straight to the Supreme Court in a timely fashion, something like that, where the aggrieved party, in this case, the Trump administration, could say, you know what, okay, he ruled against us, but we know in 30 days or less, we're going to have a ruling from the Supreme Court and see if we're right.
Yeah.
Versus months, 6, 12 months, whatever it's going to be while we just argue this out. I understand the frustration. It's just wrong.
Yeah. I love the hot take.
Sorry, I'm getting fired up.
No,
again.
I love it. Rusty shot out of a cannon today here on Inside Sources, coming in hot on this take. I totally agree with you. I think we are getting to a point where the fundamental checks and balances, the constitutional, this dynamic, Rusty, I think some of this is healthy. The pushback between, of course, the executive branch, the judicial branch. I get really concerned, though, when we start being critical of rulings and of individual judges, right? Because that is not the way the system is set up. It's one thing just to criticize the judicial branch in general, to criticize the process. As you pointed out, absolutely, there's forum shopping.
Yeah.
There are and have been activist judges. And naturally, I will just blame attorneys for exploiting all of that and making it worse over time.
Yeah.
Probably fair criticism of attorneys there. Greg Skordas, KSL legal analyst. Feel free to text in and correct us if you would like.
You'll let us have it.
It doesn't mean we'll read it on air, though. But Greg, I want to talk specifically about using the the legislative branch of government to actually be the point of the spear in attacking the judicial branch by the executive branch. And I'm talking specifically about a new article of impeachment bill introduced by Representative Brandon Gill, Republican from Texas. This is an impeachment bill targeted against Judge Boasberg. That bill was introduced earlier this month. It cited, quote, abuse of power for justification for the judge to be impeached. It already has 22 co-sponsors. How do we feel about the legislative branch of government doing the executive branch's bidding to try to impeach a member of the judicial branch? Have we just tossed out all checks and balances, Rusty, or do we think this is a normal part of the process?
Well, I guess you could say it's a normal part of the process that's just idiocy. I think, just like this makes me think of, remember how a short time ago, guess who was screaming to get rid of the filibuster in the Senate?
That's right.
It was Democrats in the Senate.
Right.
Guess who is really glad that they didn't do that? The Democrats in the Senate,
because they now are in the minority.
Exactly. Now with 53 Republicans, you could be just going hog wild on everything that you. And I wish we could, but you can't, because they were smart enough to not get rid of it. So you have someone like Chuck Grassley, who is now saying, quote, you can't impeach a judge because you disagree with their opinion. He told Fox News about it. He said, you've got to be a legislative body. I know the president is irritated with some of these judges, and I don't blame him, but you can't impeach a judge just because you disagree with an opinion. And that was the end of his quote. So in answer to your question, I think if such a measure were to actually get a vote in the House, I don't know if it would. I think there are other things that they should be focusing on, like getting this moved through the courts quickly and up to the Supreme Court, if that's what's irritating them. It would move over to the Senate, where I think it would get absolutely no traction.
Yeah.
I think it would absolutely just die over in the Senate.
What about defunding federal courts, Rusty?
Well, that's a deep question. I would assume that would be unconstitutional. I mean, there's in the Constitution it spells out the exact functions of the courts, and that's what they have to do. So
yeah.
But the House controls the purse strings. I guess you could make the argument that'd be a bit of a World War III. I think on a constitutional basis, I don't know.
Yeah.
How that would go, but I think again this I think is a losing argument, because if you are not in power, you are going to make the exact opposite of this argument, and I just think if we're going to call out hypocrisy, which we love to do on this show, let's call it out on both sides.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair, Rusty. I appreciate your insight on that. Let's bring the issue maybe closer to home here in Utah, because this battle between the powers of the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, this is not just happening nationally, right? This is also playing out right here in Utah. And we saw this dynamic really on full display during the legislative session.
Yeah.
The legislature introduced a number of bills. Some were seen as attacking or punishing the judicial branch here in Utah. Ultimately, there was a compromise reached by lawmakers and the Judicial Commission here in the state of Utah.
Yeah.
The legislature dropped several of those bills, but they then proceeded and passed a few of those. One of the bills that the legislature passed, Rusty, would have given Utah Governor Spencer Cox, or the governor, whoever it was, the ability to choose the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Governor Cox vetoed that bill.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that?
I scratched my head because I thought that was part of the quote-unquote deal made, where they backed off on certain bills and ran some others.
And the courts were neutral on that bill, to be clear. They did not oppose that bill that was vetoed by Governor Cox. My read on that is that lawmakers were surprised by that veto.
Oh, I would agree. I think it's another salvo. You have the different shots going back and forth over time between the legislature and the governor, and they, sometimes lob some shells at each other.
Yeah.
I thought there were a few shells that the governor lobbed at the legislative body this time around that were unneeded, and this one I questioned. I'm like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, if it was part of the deal and they're okay with it, why did you? I don't know. It just seemed like an odd place to flex for the governor. Maybe we can get him on sometime and talk about it, but I just thought it was another way to really irritate the legislature. And would assume that would provide a little bit more gasoline on a fire that might burn to have a override session.
I have heard, and this is speculation because I can't reveal my source, Rusty, but I have heard that perhaps Governor Cox vetoed that bill because he was uncomfortable with having the prospective Chief Justice, a member of the state Supreme Court, brought back up to the Hill to be grilled by lawmakers before they could be confirmed as Chief Justice.
Mm-hmm.
This would be after they have gone through the process of had their nomination confirmed by the Senate. I've heard that might have been one of the concerns, but again, I'm kind of coming at this with the same reaction as you. I thought that the governor's team was involved in the compromise, in the negotiations, so this was, I think, a surprise in a lot of ways, but I think it is super relevant in this broader conversation about the branches of government and how those branches check and balance against one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my irritation with the Utah Supreme Court, and it is irritation, I would love to see it resolved, but I think the right way to do it is getting whatever decisions that the legislature wants to challenge, get it up to the higher court, whether that's the U.S. Supreme Court, and obviously that takes forever, and that's part of the problem, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
To then, I think you would have a valid reason in many cases to go and prove the Utah Supreme Court wrong on the issue last summer.
Yeah.
With ballot initiatives and all that, I just think they were wrong. And I think if you challenge it up, that you have a good shot at winning. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think that's the way to address your concerns.
Yeah.
Not this current status, what we're doing.
Coming up next here on KSL Inside Sources, we're going to take a deep dive into tomorrow's special elections in Florida and in Wisconsin. We're going to get into how national politics is influencing those races, not just Elon Musk and his cheesehead hat, Rusty, in Wisconsin, but also how the Trump administration support for or opposition to President Trump is directly impacting these elections. That's coming up next.
Good afternoon. It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Chaleos. KSL's top local story. Police have arrested a Draper man after officers say he ran from police and acted like he was in a video game. KSL.com reports police initially tried to pull the 19-year-old over in February for driving a vehicle without a license plate, but he ignored the police siren and took off, reaching speeds up to 95 miles per hour. Charging documents say the man then posted videos of the chase on social media, claimed he was in the video game Grand Theft Auto. He's facing charges including failing to respond to an officer's signal to stop and reckless endangerment. Our top national story from ABC News, still no consensus between Russia and Ukraine on how to end the war in Ukraine. ABC's Marcus Moore says Russia has launched a fresh round of attacks on Ukraine.
Drone attacks have continued. In fact, Russia launched 131 drones across northeastern Ukraine and in the Kyiv region. Officials say that half of those drones were shot down, but that some did make it through their defenses, including in a residential area in Kharkiv, where several people suffered injuries. And also over the weekend, Ukrainian officials say that a military hospital was targeted, and they have accused Russia of committing war crimes.
The U.S. brokered framework ceasefire deal is a long way from an agreement. And taking a look at your money at this moment, the Dow up by 435 points. That's a full percent, sitting at 42,018. S&P 500 up by 25. The NASDAQ, though, it is down by 68 points. Keep your umbrella handy. It's going to be a wet week. We'll get an update of the forecast coming up next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. For years now, I've been telling you about Connecticut soft water systems that use 2/3 less salt than the others. But I've never told you exactly how they do that. Well, there are several ways, so consider this as part one in a series. Most of the softeners out there use a finicky, hard-to-adjust computer to guesstimate when to cycle, and it errs on the side of cycling too often, which means it'll burn through way too much salt way too soon. Connecticut is different. It has an all-mechanical system that measures the water precisely. No computer, no guesstimating, so it cycles only when needed. The result, Connecticut delivers perfectly soft water 24/7 using minimal salt. So why not save your lower back from carrying the 3 bags of salt when all you need is one? Call Northern Utah's authorized Connecticut dealer, Connecticut Quality Water Systems of Salt Lake. Call them now, 801-576-8600, or log on to softwaterutah.com and tell them Doug sent you.
Healthcare with human kindness is here. It's at Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Together, we have a common purpose, partnering with you in health and healing using powerful medicine, powerful technology, and the greatest power of all, human kindness. You'll know it when you see it, because human kindness is in every care site and in every caregiver. Common Spirit Health. Hello, human kindness.
How does a soccer club, born in an unlikely place,
Utah? You sure you want to do that in Utah?
built with players no one else wanted,
We knew no one believed in us.
reach the league's highest heights?
We finally did it. It was like just this feeling of getting to the top of the mountain.
How does that same team find a way to shatter expectations in the midst of a fight for its own survival?
Our club is burning to the ground as we speak.
I'm Amy Donaldson, and in a new podcast, Making of a Moment, the RSL story, we take a closer look at one of those iconic sports moments
Soccer is a crazy game, and we saw it firsthand tonight.
and unravel how knowing the truth of these moments can transform what they mean.
I just kind of got chills right now thinking about it.
Making of a Moment, the RSL story, is available now. Follow us at makingamomentpod.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Traffic and weather together. It's brought to you by Mountain America's low-rate auto loans. Let's check in now with Ricky Meese.
We do have an accident eastbound I-80 on the off-ramp at State Street, and crews are blocking a right lane. Looks like it's only a single vehicle, so it shouldn't take too long to get it cleared, and right now, no delays. In fact, all of the Valley freeways on the main flow seeing a very good drive. Create your floral sanctuary with Olson's Greenhouse. Locally grown premium quality flowers. The perfect complement to any space. Cheerful flowers for porches, patios, containers, and beds. Visit Olson's Greenhouse or OGG.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Good chance of showers for the first half of the week and then a slight chance for the rest of the week. Today, rain, 70% chance, and a rain-snow mix tomorrow. Right now, mostly cloudy, 52 degrees downtown. I'm Maria Shilaos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Utah's top political experts break down the first 100 days of the new administration and discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Taylor Morgan. Taylor, a few special elections tomorrow could affect the national stage, both in the short term and the long term. 2 states we're going to talk about. In Wisconsin, voters will pick a new Supreme Court justice. And that could play a role in some things around a district redistricting map within the state. We'll talk about that more in the next segment. In this segment, we want to focus, at least initially, on 2 congressional races in Florida. Republicans are favored to win those seats again. Donald Trump outperformed by 30-plus points in these districts. However, there is some worry amongst recent polling that we'll talk about with these races closing out tomorrow. And could it be an indicator of President Trump's approval or disapproval on his second term? And I'm really curious to get your opinion on this. Now, Taylor, first of all, those 2 districts are open because, number one, Matt Gaetz left the House.
Or he was artfully removed.
Yes.
By White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles.
And you and I were smiling that day, and I'm still smiling. I'm glad that he is off and has his own podcast. Good luck.
Absolutely. I believe you can get a Matt Gaetz cameo these days if you'd like one.
That's true, you can.
I think it's a little pricey, yeah, Rusty. I would like one for my birthday. It's only $500. It's the least you can do. Thank you.
All right. We'll see about that. The second person, the vacancy, is obviously Mike Waltz. He's been in the news lately, left Congress to be National Security Advisor. Both of those are open. Early voting has been going, and that'll close out tomorrow as the special election day. I'm curious your opinion in working in campaigns and doing polling before. What's got everybody up interested in this issue in Florida is that there was a poll, a small one, of about 400 voters. This was in a district that, well, these 2 districts combined are 1.6 million people.
Yeah.
So is a poll of 400 people valid?
It can be, depending on how well that sample is crafted. It depends on the methodology, the sampling of that. Here in Utah, we have just under 2 million active registered voters throughout the whole state, right? Mm-hmm. And recent polling covering statewide issues and questions, recently those samples have been in the 600s, low 600s, Rusty. Mm-hmm. If, again, the methodology is solid, and if it is a scientifically accurate sample that is weighted to reflect the demographics of the district or the state, whatever, it can be a good sample. Obviously, there would be a margin of error. That's something we would want to look at. But I don't want to dismiss the polling just immediately because it very much could be really a good, accurate snapshot of Florida voters.
Yes. Okay, that's a good summary because this one showed the Republican, last name Fine, leading the Democrat who has the last name of Weil by about 4 percentage points. So the worry is, wait a minute, if it's a plus 30 district for Trump, why would the Republican this soon after the November election only be up by 4? And so you have a lot of hand-wringing going on. Okay, well, the Democrat has raised 10 times the amount of money as the Republican. Maybe they're taking this for granted. It is fact that the not the NRCC, what's the DCCC has not been spending money on behalf of the Democrat. Why would they? That would be stupid.
Yeah.
Because they're going to lose that race. Unless there's some real shocker. I guess I could be proven wrong by Wednesday. But they haven't spent. And now President Trump and Elon Musk and others have been throwing support and money and all of that into the Republican there sort of at the last minute to make sure, he has a good showing.
Yeah.
And so the question is, does he win and by how much?
Well, Rusty, this is exactly why we're discussing this story and why our listeners here in Utah and beyond, why this matters to everyone. And the reason why it's such an interesting topic of conversation today is because we have the first opportunity to see how voters are responding to Republicans in Congress following Donald Trump's victory last year. Yeah. Of course, everyone is looking ahead to the midterm elections in 2026. And so right now here today, we get an early bellwether. We get a taste of where voters are, specifically in Florida. Florida has been a state that has recently been a swing state, and especially some areas, some counties have been a little more purple than others, right? But this is our first real indication of how voters are responding to President Trump. I'm not shocked, Rusty, that the Republican is only leading by 4 percentage points in that polling, even though Donald Trump won that specific district by 30 points. And that's because we have seen historically, we saw this in midterm elections previously, we saw that Donald Trump does not necessarily benefit down ballot candidates throughout the rest of the country. Donald Trump is a political unicorn. He is his own political animal on the ballot. And Donald Trump's voters do not necessarily percolate down ballot to congressional candidates. And that's another confirmation of that in Florida. And going into 2026, everyone is going to be looking at these special elections to help us figure out what happens in Congress.
Got it. Okay, so let's go through a couple scenarios. Do you think if let's say the Republican wins by an expected wide margin, 20-plus points, 10-plus points, something like that, that's scenario one. Scenario two, that he barely squeaks by. Scenario three is that the Democrat wins. Do you think any of those scenarios, based on what you just said, are a referendum on Donald Trump?
Ooh, Rusty.
Because I seem to, if I heard you right, you're saying it doesn't.
It depends. It honestly depends. It's hard to know. And part of it depends on the messaging that is being used in these races by the candidates. Let's go to an example of that. I want to bring up a clip of an ad that is being used by Democratic Josh Weil, W-E-I-L.
Either one works.
Against the Republican Randy Fine in this race.
I'm Josh Weil, and I approve this message.
Randy Fine, a violent, corrupt politician, so radical and dangerous, he supports the effort to cut $880 billion for Medicaid, devastating disabled children and those in nursing homes. Fine is so unhinged and anti-American, he supports the idea that Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. He wants to cut $700 billion, stealing from your retirement. Randy Fine, unhinged, un-American.
Okay, well, we have a great example there, listeners, of very negative, very attacky congressional campaign advertising. That was an ad by the Democratic candidate Josh Weil running in Florida against Republican Randy Fine. Now, Rusty, correct me or maybe push back, I should say, if you disagree. I didn't hear President Trump mentioned once, but what I did hear is a Democrat running against President Trump's agenda.
Yes, you did hear that correctly. And I think you saw my reaction. I couldn't believe how...
I wasn't sure if you were crying or laughing,
No, I'm
Rusty.
laughing so hard I'm crying because I can't believe how blatantly just pointed that ad was of basically this guy, Randy Fine, is responsible for, could be responsible for everything wrong with the world.
He's murdering babies left and right.
Oh my gosh, it's like, I can't, would people fall for this? But I guess I'm
in all
digressing.
seriousness, listeners, if you are a Utah, and if you're a Utah voter, you don't hear this kind of advertising for campaigns because
I wouldn't work here.
These things backfire in Utah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, this kind of advertising is the norm.
Correct.
In most other states when it comes to congressional elections. It is a brutal business, Rusty, and these ads are generally very negative and very attack style, and this was just a prime example of that.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if this attack line works because what they're going after is the, I believe, incorrect attack lines on Republicans in Congress. That A, they're going to cut Social Security, which they've obviously said they are not going to do that in this. That is not a subject of anything going on right now. And then you talked about Medicaid and all of that stuff. I'm curious to see if people buy that. If they do buy it, and this candidate, this Democrat, Josh Weil, as we learned his name was, does better than expected or even pulls out a squeaker, I guess that would be a huge indicator on what's coming. I just, to this point, have not seen credible evidence that it's going to work. But as we know on this show, I can be very, very wrong.
Yeah.
So,
well, we'll see what happens in Florida. Again, kind of our first early indication, bellwether of how American voters in congressional races, Rusty, are responding to President Trump's second administration.
All right, next on Inside Sources, I can't speak today, we'll continue our special coverage of tomorrow's special elections and look at the Wisconsin Supreme Court and how Elon Musk plays into this. More on that coming up next.
You trust us for news and information in your car. Now trust us at home. KSL News Radio has you covered, keeping you informed on the latest breaking news, weather, traffic, sports, and more. Listen on your Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Just say, Alexa, open KSL News Radio. Or listen on the KSL News Radio Listen app. Text the word app to 57500. KSL News Radio. We have you covered.
Robinhood Gold members can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. A very handsome reward indeed. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive a 3% IRA boost on annual contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
Over the years, you've brought them into your home. You were prescribed opioids after the C-section, when Dad injured his back, when your basketball star tore his ACL. Opioids helped with the pain, and you held on to them just in case. But did you know holding on to unused opioids puts your family at risk? Opioids are powerful pain-reducing prescription medicines, but most people who are prescribed opioids don't finish their prescriptions. So millions of unused opioids are sitting in homes across the country. And tragically, more than 100 Americans die every day from overdoses involving opioids. What can you do to protect your family? Remove the risk of unused opioids from your home. Pills, patches, or syrups in drawers, purses, and cabinets, anywhere they might be hiding. To find out how to dispose of them properly, visit www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the complexities of an issue. But I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Tomorrow, voters in Wisconsin will fill a vacant seat on the state Supreme Court. While the congressional races in Florida could produce more immediate effects and really give us that indication or bellwether of where the midterm elections may land, the Wisconsin race is looking more long-term when it comes to the liberal versus conservative balance of power on that state Supreme Court. Depending on who Wisconsin voters pick, the state could see changes to things like its congressional races, abortion rights, more. Republicans have been hammering that state hard with advertising, hoping to elect the conservative justice running. Elon Musk has gotten very, very involved in this Wisconsin Supreme Court election. Welcome back to KSL Inside Sources. I'm Taylor Morgan here with Rusty Cannon. Rusty, what was your immediate reaction to all the news and all the coverage of Elon Musk's very direct personal and financial involvement in this Wisconsin state Supreme Court race?
Well, being the nerd that I am, the first question I asked is, can he do what he's doing?
Yeah.
As far as legally.
Well, it's not just you.
Okay,
a lot
yes,
of folks
that's
have
true.
been
A lot of
asking
folks
that
have.
question.
Yeah. So while he was speaking at a rally at a rally in Wisconsin on Sunday night, Elon Musk gave out $1 million check to two people, declaring them spokespeople for the political group ahead of this vote. Let's listen to some soundbite about that.
But long term, I think Tesla stock's going to do fine. Maybe it's a buying opportunity.
Okay.
Well, that wasn't about that, but about the checks he handed out.
Well, he used the opportunity, the platform there, to promote Tesla a little bit.
It looks like it, yeah.
I can understand perhaps some of the money for these checks might have something to do a little bit maybe with Tesla. Rusty, there was a challenge to Elon Musk handing out this kind of money because it is illegal in this country to pay anyone to vote, right?
Yes.
And so there was a challenge to Elon Musk being able to do this in Wisconsin. Rusty, I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of concerns about this. Let's start maybe at the top, learning a little more about why our listeners should care about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race.
The closely watched race between conservative Waukesha County Judge Brad Schimmel and liberal Dane County Judge Susan Crawford, a test of the political power of Musk and a barometer about how voters are feeling about President Trump's second term. The outcome of Tuesday's race will determine control of the state's high court. That could impact future rulings on abortion rights and Wisconsin's congressional map, which could shake up control of Congress.
Go ahead. Taylor, this is a good setup for kind of what we were talking about on why would Elon Musk be handing out $1 million checks?
Yeah, and again, there was opposition. A lot of people were wondering if indeed this was legal to reward prospective voters with $1 million checks each. Just minutes before Elon Musk's rally in Green Bay, Wisconsin, where he handed out these checks, the state Supreme Court ruled in his favor.
Normally an election for a judge would not be that big of a deal. It just so happens that in this case, it could decide the control of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Okay, so it is a big deal.
Yes.
It could decide the makeup of the U.S. House of Representatives based on some legal rulings forthcoming in Wisconsin.
Correct.
Elon Musk clearly is putting a lot of his personal time and money into this. Also, Rusty, he is fully committed to the bit. He wore a cheesehead hat on stage at this rally in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Let's talk a little bit about Elon Musk.
Okay.
In a sense, we have seen polling, national polling, that has Elon Musk's likability, approval ratings in the low 20s and 30s, right?
Okay.
More and more, it is becoming a strategy nationwide for Democratic candidates for all kinds of offices, for the state legislature, for city councils, for the state Supreme Court. Anywhere and everywhere Democrats are running for elected office, more and more of them are trying to run against Elon Musk rather than the Republican or opponent on the ballot. What is your take on that?
You know, it's a very interesting question because I don't know whether it works. Or we'll have to see if it's, as things unfold, if it does work. Because the important thing that I think a lot of people might be missing is that Elon Musk has never been and likely never will be on a ballot. And he's not the one that you're voting for or against. Now, I guess you could use that, you know, he is the boogeyman. And the question of, well, if it's effective, then you could see the Republicans trying to distance themselves from him, which I think could happen if election results are not as good as hoped or even worse than hoped. I think for Republicans, I think you could see people running away from it. I just personally don't think this is an effective attack. I think at any point in time, President Trump can kind of shut this down.
Yeah.
He can let Elon go.
That's right.
Elon has plenty of things to do.
He is not in an elected position.
No.
He is not directly accountable to any voters.
Correct. He could let him go or just stop taking his advice or be diminished in his role, all of that stuff. He will be just fine, as we know. Plenty else to do. And so I can't decide whether this is a very smart strategy of President Trump to let him be this foil, to be this shield, and to take all this heat, or if it's going to backfire. I think a lot of people want it to backfire. Encounter to the point of a poll showing very low favorability ratings for Elon Musk. I don't know about that. He has millions and millions of followers on X.
He does.
And he has.
Well, he also owns X.
Well, correct. But my point being that he is, especially with that younger voter set, he is followed by millions. And now I'm not saying everyone that follows him agrees with him, but he has massive amounts of influence. Yeah. And we saw that happen with some, various issues since the election, before the election, after the election. I don't know. I just wonder if somehow this polling is not baking in some actual credibility that Elon Musk has with a lot of Americans.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to an example of an anti-Elon Musk political ad.
Firing air traffic controllers, cutting rape crisis centers, attacking Social Security. Elon Musk is out of control. And now the power-hungry billionaire is unloading millions to buy the Wisconsin Supreme Court. He knows MAGA politician Brad Schimmel is for sale and will abolish the checks and balances that protect us. He thinks he's above the law. Protect our last line of defense. Vote Susan Crawford for Supreme Court.
Okay, Rusty, not quite as nasty.
I'm not dying laughing like the
not
other
as
one.
bad as the ad we listened to in the Florida congressional special election. Yeah. Was that machine gun fire in the background there?
I think it was.
Were those bullets whizzing past our heads there in that ad? Kind of a silly ad, a little bit questionable. Makes me grateful that we don't elect our justices here in the great state of Utah.
Yeah, that's a whole nother segment we could do.
Absolutely right. Again, it is an interesting strategy to go after Musk instead of President Trump. For Democrats, and I've been very vocal and critical of this, Democratic strategy and kind of the identity of the National Democratic Party, what they're doing for far too long is really, Rusty, for the last many years, they have been nothing but the party that is anti-Trump.
Yeah.
They are now in a place where they have to carve out a future identity. They have to identify leaders in the face of the Democratic Party. What does the Democratic Party stand for, Rusty? It is not enough with voters to simply stand against someone or something. You have to be for someone or something instead. And being anti-Trump or being now anti-Elon, I don't think that is a winning message or strategy for Democrats.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, and that's probably where I would pivot to. You could ask the same question as back in with the election back in November: I think the main point behind Kamala Harris was that, hey, I'm not him, right? Running as the not Trump candidate, but you have to have something for that you're voting for, and I agree with you. I really, really agree with you. I'm curious to see if the results from Tuesday's elections in these states we've talked about will dispel any misgivings that would come about with our opinion that this just isn't going to work. I just don't think it works. As you mentioned, you've got to be for, and I think it's well documented that Democrats do not have a cohesive message or a cohesive leader, and therefore I would think that these types of attacks just really wouldn't land that well.
And you know what, Rusty? It's not just about how much money you can raise and spend. Kamala Harris, record amount raised and spent.
$1 billion.
Didn't do it. Coming up next after the break, we're going to talk about a lot of interesting stories, housing locally, Trump's third term. Stay right here for all of that and more.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Chaleos. KSL's top story this hour. An 18-year-old from Tooele has been arrested for driving under the influence and causing a crash that killed the passenger in his car over the weekend. Police responded to a single-car crash around 3 in the morning on Sunday. They say a 16-year-old died on the scene. Police say 18-year-old Jackson Wood failed a sobriety test. Officers say they found open containers and a THC vape. Our top national story from ABC News. More tariffs are set to go into effect later this week. President Trump is imposing these reciprocal tariffs worldwide, but there are few details surrounding them. Here's what we do know.
This week, auto tariffs are going to go into effect, a 25% tariff on cars coming into the United States, and in a couple of weeks, 25% on parts of autos coming into the U.S. He's also put into effect steel and aluminum tariffs, and of course, there have been the tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and 2 different rounds of tariffs on Chinese imports.
ABC's Karen Travers reporting many businesses say they will have to pass on the cost to the consumer. Taking a look at your money at this moment, the Dow at the close up by 435 points, more than a full percent, sitting at 42,019. S&P 500 up by 25 points. The NASDAQ down by 68 points. Good chance of showers later on today. We'll check the forecast coming up next. KSL News Time 2:01.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
It doesn't matter if your only neighbors are wildlife or just wild in general.
I would propose that amendment.
If you work from home, or work is technically at home, every homeowner can save money by getting a ThermWise home energy plan from Enbridge Gas. Discover ways to make your home more energy efficient and apply for rebates if you purchase any energy efficient appliances. Schedule a home energy plan from Enbridge Gas at thermwise.com.
Hi, Susan. We haven't seen or heard from you.
Cold.
We would like to locate Joyce.
The mysteries that made podcast history
Cherie Warren disappeared.
are now together for free at KSLPodcasts.com.
I'm Dave Cawley, the host of Cold. Join me for Season 1, The Susan Powell Case Files, Season 2, Justice for Joyce, and Season 3, The Search for Cherie. Listen anytime for free at KSLPodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know when you're racing into the store and someone interrupts you with a petition and you just sign it so you can move on? Stop. Don't sign it. Unions are trying to overturn a law that protects our kids. By signing, you're supporting handing over your tax dollars to big unions so they can push their radical agenda into classrooms. Stop the unions. Stand for kids. Tell your friends and family. Decline to sign the union petition. Utah Parents United paid for this ad, not authorized by any political issues committee.
Dave and Dujanovic.
What our listeners need to know is what's going on behind the scenes. We hold weekly meetings on how to do our jobs as talk show hosts, as journalists, better than we did them yesterday.
There's some very conservative voices. There's some very liberal voices. But there is space for both. And we're not at each other's throats. We're not yelling at each other. We're having a discussion.
Listen for Dave and Dujanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together. It's brought to you by Mountain America's low-rate auto loans. And here's Ricky Meese.
The accident that we had eastbound I-80 at the off-ramp at State Street blocking a right lane has been cleared. That lane now open. Crews are in the cleanup stages of an accident at 1800 South 3rd West. And a small crash, but it is out of traffic. This is on I-215's West Belt going southbound after California Avenue on the shoulder. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
70% chance of showers this afternoon into this evening. Mostly rain. Tomorrow, though, a rain-snow mix, and it's an 80% chance of showers. And still a good chance of showers on Wednesday as well. Right now, mostly cloudy, 54 degrees downtown. I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Utah's top political experts break down the first 100 days of the new administration and discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Taylor Morgan. Have you ever toyed with the idea of leaving the state of Utah due to high housing costs? If so, you're in company with about 1/3 of the state, according to a new poll. This poll, conducted by Noble Predictive Insights, says that 53% of Utahns rank affordable housing as one of their top 3 concerns. Let's dig in this a bit more. Taylor, I know you've talked about this so far today. I think you're on earlier.
Yeah.
What's going on here with this poll? This might be surprising to a lot of people.
Yeah, well, this 1/3 of Utahns saying that they are considering leaving the state due to the high cost of housing, Rusty. These are younger Utahns, right?
Yeah.
Utahns up to about age 29, age 30, and they are just starting out in life, and they are unable to afford a home anywhere near the places where they work, Rusty. This is a real concern for our state. We know that Utah has really the strongest economy in our country. We are also the lowest median age. We have the youngest population of any state in the country.
Yeah, good point.
Rusty, our economy here in Utah, especially, for example, our tech industry, the tech sector here in Utah, has succeeded in large part because of this unique blend of Utah being a great place to live, a high quality of life, access to outdoor recreation, all of these things, right? But also the affordability.
Yeah.
We are losing the affordability piece of that equation. And Rusty, it is really alarming to me, and I think every one of us should be very concerned that so many young Utahns are saying they just can't afford to start their lives here. They can't afford to buy a home, and they're going to have to look elsewhere. Huge problem, Rusty, because down the road, that takes a lot of economic growth off the table for Utah.
It does, yeah. The question that I want to get to, in fact, actually, let me make this point before we get to the question I wanted to ask. This was an interesting news article recently. Did you know that an area in Utah now, I'm going to talk about Summit County, its median home price is now higher than the median home price in San Francisco and Honolulu?
Well,
which surprised me. But now let's
a little wild, but we're talking about Park City,
exactly.
Right?
Summit County being Park City. So that is a different ballpark up there. However, that says something. You think of those areas as being just astronomically expensive.
True.
Now the median house price in an area of Utah, this being Summit County, is in that ballpark. That's how things are changing. So here's the question that I always want to ask when we talk about this is, what do you do about it?
Yeah.
And this is where I think some conversations can go wrong. In fact, at the end of our show, stay tuned, we'll have an interesting segment on a government project gone wrong. Is the government able to fix this problem? I would say wholeheartedly, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Can the government help with this problem? Maybe.
Yeah.
Can supply fix this problem? Yes. You have to increase the supply. But here's the problem. If you asked any resident, if I ask you the question or you ask me, do you want to make your house more affordable that you own so someone can get into it? The answer is no.
Heck no.
No. You want the value high because obviously that's your bottom line, right?
Right.
You want your asset to be that you own, or at least maybe you have a mortgage on it, but you own it. You want that to be moving up in value.
Right.
So everybody wants affordable housing, but it can't be their house that's affordable. And that's
right.
where I think there's some hypocrisy in it. Now, the other way that I think needs to be addressed is a lot of this is NIMBYism, meaning not in my backyard.
Right.
Meaning where you have some cities, towns, and those kinds of things that just block efforts to build affordable housing. And you could go on about the various reasons, and maybe some of them are valid. But I think that NIMBYism is a lot of the problem as well, where cities are disincentivized from approving housing because of the 45% tax exemption.
Right.
You know, it doesn't bring in the tax revenue. It brings in more services they have to provide. They'd rather be a bunch more commercial, right? Or industrial.
Yeah.
And, you can't fault them for that. That's just how tax policy works here right now. And so you have all these different forces. I don't see an easy way out of this. I mean, as much as politicians continue to talk about it and have studies and commissions and throw money at it, there is really nothing we can do about it except for try to build more houses. That's the only thing we can do.
We need to demand more supply.
Yeah.
Is what we need to do. Now, Rusty, also, as we talk about this, it is a huge problem. It is, in my opinion, the biggest threat to Utah's future economic prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
Often we like to blame Californians or others moving into Utah from other states. There is some of that.
Yeah,
Rusty, but by far and away, this is a Utah problem. It is our children who are struggling with this problem today. Let's listen to President and CEO of Envision Utah, Ari Broning, talk about this very issue.
Well, it sure sounds good to have fewer people here, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that the best way to have fewer people is to price out our own kids and send them elsewhere. You know, we're not going to price out the people selling their $1.5 million home in California and moving here. We're going to price out our own kids. And personally, that's not the direction I want to go. It does help with our water constraints and our traffic and a lot of other things, but I don't think we want to become, say, San Diego, where just nobody can afford to live there.
Okay, I was asking Ari this morning on the Dave and Dujanovic show here on KSL News Radio. I was filling in today for Debbie Dujanovic, and I proposed to Ari that, is there a way we can just prohibit Californians from moving here? Can we do that? Turns out, Rusty, there's something in the Constitution about interstate commerce. I don't know. We can't.
I think you have a hard time pulling that off.
And then my backup plan was for all of us to take to social media and in all the comments, just remind everybody that Utah is very weird. You do not want to live here, and that Colorado is a lot more beautiful. It's so much better to live in Colorado. The ski resorts are closer. It's just better.
Yeah.
Don't move to Utah. But again, Ari said, no, that's not going to work, Taylor, because this is a Utah problem. It's our kids.
Correct. I have kids in this realm. Mid-20s down to late teens. My children will face this issue head on in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And I worry about it as well. I don't have a good solution other than that we've got to build more houses. If wages increase commensurate with this increase, that's one thing, but that's not happening.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe in some small way. In other ways you could. Now there's some innovative things you can do, where there's been some proposals of some neighborhoods being built, and I think there's one actually going up in northern Utah where it's an innovative concept. Why do you need a garage?
Yeah.
You don't need a garage. Have a carport. Those kinds of things. Less of a drive. Just making that footprint smaller to where you have what you need, meaning, a few bedrooms, a kitchen, bathroom, all the necessary things. It's good, it's safe, it's well built. But why have that extra cost involved in those types of things? And that helps reduce prices to where you can have a home that anybody could buy for, say, $200,000, $300,000, in that range where a first-time home buyer could be and has been.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves. Our kids will not be able to afford a $700,000 or $800,000 starter home. That's ridiculous.
No way. Yeah, my story, when my wife and I first got married back in 2006, the first thing we did is we spent every penny that the two of us had saved up together, and we bought a townhouse to move into when we got married back in 2006. We later sold that townhouse for almost 3 times what we paid for it in 2009. Bought a home. Rusty, that's my wealth. My wealth.
Yeah.
Whatever I am worth in terms of net value, it is locked up in the home that we own. And the only reason I am able to own a home is because we were able to afford a townhouse back in 2006. I worry a lot about your kids. I worry about my kids. They're younger, 14 and 9. But this problem is only getting worse.
Yeah.
Let's talk about maybe something we could do. We know that currently in Utah right now, there are over 600,000 acres within Utah city limits, existing city limits, that is owned by the federal government.
Correct.
The BLM, the Forest Service. That land, again, it exists within existing city boundaries.
Yeah, this isn't in the boonies.
No, it has access to infrastructure, or relatively inexpensive infrastructure, because it's within city limits. Opening that land up and using it to build more housing here in Utah, that's something we could do.
Well,
I know Governor
total sense.
Cox, the legislature, Attorney General Derek Brown, they're working on that.
Who would oppose that?
Well, those who would want the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, for example. There are some areas in existing city limits where it would impact the viewscape, the environment,
Because
the
I don't
natural
believe
resources.
the city limits are in southern Utah at all.
Touche.
I'm making
Rusty.
a joke, right?
Right, yeah. No, it's a fair point, and I think that this is the battle. Ultimately, it is about preservation of Utah's unique landscapes.
Yeah.
We are the most beautiful state of all 50, Rusty. We have unparalleled, incomparable access to a variety of outdoor recreation opportunities and landscapes, and here in Utah, all of us want to preserve that.
Yeah.
But we have to grapple with the reality that we are beyond capacity. It is our own kids, our own families that are the problem, the driver of that. We have to be willing to set aside the NIMBY approach, not in my backyard, and build more affordable housing. Our legislature has to continue appropriating money to do so. That's one thing the government can do. Build roads, build sewer lines, get access to water in order to allow for these affordable houses to be built.
Yeah, they can. Let's hope they make good decisions to actually help the problem and not mess it up. All right, coming up on Inside Sources, as he finished his bill review last week, Governor Spencer Cox wrote about the creation of a new criminal justice task force to prioritize criminal justice reform in the state. We'll discuss more on that next.
Rebates and tax incentives sound great, but they can be a little bit of a headache when it comes time to claim them. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and we try and make it as easy as possible for you to claim those rebates. We even have a rebate support specialist on our team to answer your questions and help you get every dollar your new furnace and air conditioner qualify for. You might not realize it, but right now, local utilities are offering over $2,400 in rebates, and there's another $3,200 available in federal tax incentives. That's over $5,600 in additional savings for qualifying heating and cooling upgrades. When you couple those rebates and incentives with Any Hour Services free furnace sale that's going on right now, even if you've just been thinking about replacing your old furnace and air conditioner, it makes a lot of sense to schedule a free estimate and learn more. One of our HVAC supervisors can come to your home and explain everything. Call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7400. Google Any Hour Services or schedule a free estimate online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
This Friday from 10 to 1, the movie show comes to Sound Sleep. But first, take time to learn about a better night's rest. Sound Sleep delivers oral appliance therapy that treats sleep apnea without the use of CPAP machines. They're professionally fit, warranted, and covered by most major medical insurance. End the days of a poor night's sleep. With offices from Clearfield to St. George, Sound Sleep will help. Call Sound Sleep at 801-716-8672 today.
Get ready for a rate with a view. For a limited time, Mountain America Credit Union has auto loans as low as 5.74% APR. Explore serene valleys, roaring waterfalls, and relaxing beaches, all while enjoying a low monthly payment. Apply for your Mountain America auto loan featuring a 5.74 rate. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Loans on approved credit. Limited time offer. Offer can change or be withdrawn at any time. Offer ends March 31st, 2025.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-583-6681. That's 800-583-6681.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with a Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com and get ready for the workday.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Jeff Kaplan. I'm energized by breaking news. First of all, because it's right now, and second of all, because in many cases the audience needs to know. There's no more important service that we can provide, and I find it critically important to get more details to the audience as quickly as possible. There's nothing more energizing than that for me. Not at all. The most important thing we do is breaking news. I am gratified that so many people listen to me every afternoon on KSL, but what they don't know is that there are so many people behind the scenes making it happen, checking on the traffic, answering the phones, making the calls, talking to the newsmakers. They're out in the street, into the field to get the raw information, and then putting it all together so that I can sit in front of a microphone and be a source of information every afternoon. But there are so many people who make it happen. That's what you don't know.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Utah Governor Spencer Cox finished his bill review last week, right before the deadline. As part of that bill review, he vetoed 6 bills. He let 3 bills pass into law without his signature. He also wrote a very lengthy, mildly worded letter to legislative leadership. In that letter, he outlined and explained reasons for why he vetoed certain bills and what he wants the legislature to change about other bills in possible special sessions this year or in the future. Also, as part of that letter, he wrote about creating a new criminal justice task force to tackle reform, referencing the more than 75 bills passed in the 2025 legislative session dealing with criminal justice reform. He asserted that this should be a top priority for lawmakers and for state leaders in the future. Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. I am Taylor Morgan alongside Rusty Cannon. Rusty, when you saw this letter, when you caught the news of Governor Cox vetoing these bills last week, what was your reaction?
On this specific part on crime or just in general?
In general.
In general, I was surprised by, well, I don't want to deviate from what we're going to talk about in this segment, his veto of the property tax bill. I totally disagreed with him on that one.
Okay.
But then the ones that went into effect without his signature, I thought that was a political path. I don't know if that was one based on principle.
Yeah.
And then this one on the crime task force, I just disagree with his thinking on the subject.
Yeah. I have been pretty critical of Governor Cox over the last week, Rusty, about some of these vetoes and some of these non-vetoes.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I don't understand the political move, the messaging here around complaining about the flag bill, specifically calling that out in this lengthy letter to lawmakers, saying he has serious reservations and problems with that bill, saying also that he wished that lawmakers and stakeholders would have stayed at the negotiating table to forge a better bill, but then ultimately not vetoing the bill, letting it go into law without his signature.
Mm-hmm.
Rusty, my take on this, and it's not about the underlying bill, right? Just as a political strategist here, why wouldn't Governor Cox veto that bill and force those negotiations he called for in a special session? Do you believe that he was afraid of how it would look if the legislature overrode that veto? What are your thoughts on that?
I would agree. I think he would likely be afraid of the reaction that he would get. He did mention in the letter, now we're talking specifically about the flag bill, right?
Yes.
He mentioned there that he believed his veto would be overridden. I can guarantee it would have been overridden.
Yeah.
And so I think you make a great point. Why not veto it and try to get some negotiation done, or you get overridden? That sounds like a better alternative than taking what I think was an unprincipled approach in trying to please both sides.
Yeah.
I think that has been a consistent issue for this governor, and I think it happened again here.
But and then in a dynamic here in Utah where we have a state legislature that, in my eyes, has consolidated political power to a historically unprecedented degree. Mm-hmm. Governor Cox is, I believe, fighting for every bit of political power he can get. Yet he vetoed the bill that would have given him the ability to appoint the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court.
Yeah.
That bill was not opposed by the courts. In fact, that bill came about as part of the compromise package of bills agreed to by legislative leadership in the courts. Governor Cox then, I believe, surprised lawmakers by vetoing that bill. That's the hill that he's going to take the veto on, so to speak, but then let the flag bill go into law untouched with his written criticisms. Rusty, I'm just struggling to see the strategy here on a lot of this, but let's get now to criminal justice reform.
Okay.
This is something that I know you were tracking during the session, something you're aware of.
Yep.
Your reaction to Governor Cox in this lengthy letter calling out criminal justice reform and calling for a new task force?
Yeah, so this is, and I'll get to the point where I disagree. Let me read what he said. Well, first of all, as you mentioned, more than 77 bills were done regarding criminal justice reform. And I'm going to quote, he said, to quote, "I believe in law and order and public safety is a top priority for my administration. Those who endanger our community must be held accountable. This makes for a total of over 200 new crimes or increased penalties over the past 6 years, adding to the over 2,000 existing misdemeanor and felony offenses already on the books. There's also a valid question as to whether these enhancements, absent an overarching strategy, will actually achieve the public safety goals they're intended to address." So his solution, and that ends the quote, and his solution obviously is establishing what is called the Utah Criminal Justice Task Force. Now, I guess I give him credit of teeing up some conversation about it, but here's where I disagree. I think a stiffer penalty on a lot of crime absolutely makes a difference.
Yeah.
What in the world else would it do? I think if it's specific to a statute we dealt with in our industry, we were trying to get a penalty enhanced to just actually get some deterrence of a crime that is currently not deterred at all in 30 years. And so a penalty increase is valid in that you then hopefully say to criminals, hey, you stand a greater chance of getting caught and getting prosecuted, and the penalty is even worse. So maybe you should think about not doing this crime anymore. I think that's a very valid reason. And just saying, well, there's too many of these, there must be something we need to do about it, I think is wrong. I think he's speaking out both sides of his mouth when he says, I believe in law and order and all of this stuff. However, and everyone needs to be held accountable. I believe in that. But there's too many of these bills and we need to have maybe we're going in the wrong direction. I think you can't have it both ways. I think increased penalty is necessary in many different instances. In those committees, they're taking those issues one by one, typically all of the time, and vetting those. The committee knows what they're doing. They're not just going to willy-nilly let things through. Trust me, I went through that process and trying to get something passed. And so I just think I disagree with what he's saying here. I think he's trying, again, as we mentioned, which I think is a recurring theme of this administration, trying to please both sides when you end up eventually not pleasing anybody.
Yeah. What about the timing of this, Rusty? To me, it was conspicuous that he did this in his post-legislative session bill review as part of the letter to lawmakers explaining why he vetoed some bills and let other bills go into law without a signature. His call for this criminal justice task force was in that letter. Why the timing? Why do this after the session is just concluded and not before or during the session as part of the governor's legislative priorities ahead of time? What is the timing issue here?
That's a great question. In fact, you've stumped me where I don't know.
Okay. And I'm not just trying to be critical. It's an honest question. I should mention that our producer, Andy, has been reaching out to Utah Governor Spencer Cox in his office today to invite him on the show and talk about some of these things.
Good.
We would love to give him that platform and have that conversation with him as soon as he's available. So I'm not just trying to be critical. It's an honest question on my part.
Yeah.
I don't understand the timing. I would like to know more. I'd like to ask those questions. Governor Cox has requested specifically that lawmakers come up with a framework outlining a task force's core duties. He wants that task force to establish principles for a criminal justice framework, provide recommendations to the governor and the legislature, evaluate criminal offenses that directly connect to the work of state agencies. He wants lawmakers to do this with him as part of the executive branch. A coordinated approach here, Rusty. But I have to, again, were lawmakers surprised by this, or was this something they expected, and why after the session?
Well, I think legislative leadership likely knew all of this was coming. I'm sure they worked these things out before, but I think the general body probably was a surprise. I also scratched my head when we're trying to, and I believe the governor's been in tune with this, along with legislative leadership, reducing the number of boards, commissions, and task forces we have, and then he goes and proposes another one?
I guess
I'm like, wait a minute. I thought we were trying to reduce these. And,
Rusty,
and how is this different than all the committee work?
Listen, I'm going to just put this out there right now on the air live. I believe Utah needs a new task force to eliminate the number of task forces in our state.
I would love to be on
I would
that
like
task
you to
force.
head up that task force for me. I don't know what the difference is between a commission, a committee, and a task force. I think task force sounds more fun.
That's
okay?
right, because you have a task.
I'll join a task force like
Okay.
Space Force.
That's
but
right.
Don't put me on a commission, right?
Got it.
Okay. Well, certainly more to come on this topic. We will continue to follow criminal justice reform, what this task force looks like, who's on it, what they recommend or don't recommend, something that we'll continue to watch here on KSL Inside Sources. Coming up next on the show, we're going to pivot back to national politics with a conversation about President Donald Trump's desire for a third term in office. Stay with us.
Good afternoon, 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. KSL's top local story this hour, animal cruelty. An Ogden man is sitting in jail after allegedly killing his girlfriend's little kittens.
Ogden police say they responded to a call from a teenager on Saturday who said her boyfriend Edwin Chavez had killed her cats and was fighting with his family. Police say they were also advised that Chavez was drunk. The probable cause statement says Chavez was upset the cats had peed on the bed and he began hitting the small kittens against the wall. Chavez also allegedly slapped his girlfriend and grabbed her throat with both hands. He's being accused of multiple crimes, including aggravated assault and aggravated cruelty to an animal. Verl Johansson, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. For the first time since they came back to Earth, we're hearing from the two astronauts who were stuck in space.
Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams say they're doing well. Williams even went for a 3-mile run on Sunday. And what's the first food she ate when she got home?
I had a good grilled cheese sandwich when I got home.
Both astronauts say they are willing to fly on Boeing's Starliner again because they know its problems will be fixed. As for who's at fault for the troubled space flight on Starliner, Wilmore says everybody involved.
Responsibility with Boeing? Yes. Responsibility with NASA? Yes.
Alex Stone, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, last day of the quarter, the Dow was up 234 points. Coming up, rain, wind, and a cold snap are on the way. KSL weather is on the way next. Stay right here. KSL News Time, 2:32.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission. Free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? When it comes to Big Wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular to get the same fast nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month, and now for a limited time, new customers can get their second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit a store near you, or ConsumerCellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com and get ready for the workday.
Emergency traffic on KSL. It's brought to you by Mountain America's My Style checking account with built-in benefits. Here's Ricky Meese.
And there they go. We had traffic stop for several minutes on southbound I-15 in Utah County, well after University Avenue Provo near East Bay. They had to clean up some stuff off the roadway, and then as soon as that was done, they opened up the freeway once again. So we are starting to see traffic move, but not before delays have set in for a couple of miles. And in that is a secondary crash in the mix, southbound I-15, University Avenue Provo. It's been moved over to the shoulder. Utah Symphony performs the greatest classical hits from the 1700s to today at Bravenel Hall. Don't miss Mahler, Mozart, and more. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The KSL forecast. The wind kicks up, showers and thunderstorms are possible, then snow after 3 a.m. as the temperature falls to 32 degrees. Little or no accumulation expected. Snow showers are possible tomorrow. Right now in Salt Lake City, we're at 54 degrees. I'm Jeff Kaplan from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Utah's top political experts break down the first 100 days of the new administration and discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
While he's joked about it in the past, this weekend, President Trump told NBC News he's no longer joking. He's looking into the possibility of running for a third term as president. The 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution forbids a president from being elected more than twice, but the president says he and his team are looking into other ways to go about this, with the president saying he, quote, likes working.
He likes working, Rusty, and President Trump said it's only because so many other people really, really want him to explore a third term.
Okay.
He's doing it for them, Rusty.
I understand. Here's what ABC's Mary Bruce said about the subject.
In some of his strongest comments yet, President Trump says he's considering his options to serve a third term in office, a breach of the Constitution's two-term limit for presidents.
I don't want to talk about it. I'm just telling you, I have had more people say, please run again. They said, we have a long way to go before we even think about that.
In a phone call with NBC, Trump saying, quote, there are methods which you could do it, including possibly urging his vice president, J.D. Vance, to run and then cede power back to Trump.
Okay, before we get into whether this is doable or not, Taylor wanted to play another sound clip. This is Utah Senator John Curtis. He was asked on a weekend talk show, this was just, I think, last week on Meet the Press on ABC News, what he thinks of this issue. Let's hear what he said.
Is there any scenario where you would support a third term for President Trump, which is not legal under the Constitution?
Yeah, I wouldn't have supported a third term for George Washington.
So that's a no?
That's a no, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, Taylor, I was going to get your thoughts. I wanted to play that first. I agree with Senator Curtis. This is not something I would support.
Okay, yeah, me neither.
Okay.
I'm grateful for Senator Curtis answering so directly here. Rusty, let's talk about the 22nd Amendment here, because in the fine print, in the text, one could argue, and to be clear, one could, that doesn't mean the one is me.
Okay.
I'm not making this case. I am not
I'm going to tweet that now.
A constitutional attorney, Rusty, but one could see a avenue or call it a loophole for an argument that could potentially give President Trump 2 more years. He cannot be an elected candidate for the office of president more than twice. Okay. That's not possible because of the 22nd Amendment. That is very clear. However, there is some maybe wiggle room, Rusty. I don't know. Let's read it. The 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, ratified in February of 1951, by the way.
Correct.
This was on the heels of FDR's 3 terms in office, right? So before then, we had this handshake agreement, I think, with America, that because of George Washington's precedent, no president would serve more than 2 terms. Well, FDR blew that up.
Yeah.
And then we got the 22nd Amendment officially ratified by the states in 1951. And the 22nd Amendment reads, no person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of president more than once.
Okay, so if as an example of LBJ came in after Kennedy was killed, and so he took over as president. He could only run once.
Right.
And then also, that was after 1951. So in addition, just running on your own, you can only do it twice. So you mentioned loopholes. What are the loopholes?
Well, again, President Trump has said his team is exploring options. Okay. We don't know exactly what they're thinking. President Trump has declined to elaborate or provide details on this. But here's what we do know, that some of the options that are being reported on as having been considered or talked about by those in or close to the administration, they're looking at this 10-year limitation.
Okay.
Because the 22nd Amendment, it's not just a 2-term limitation, Rusty. It could be interpreted as capping the service of any one person as president at 10 years.
Oh, you can't be elected.
Not just 2 terms. Yeah. So here are some options. Throwing these out there. They're a little bit crazy, Rusty, okay? But we're talking about President Donald Trump.
Okay.
And I think if we have learned anything about the president, it is that never underestimate any wacky idea coming from President Trump or his team. Okay?
Yes, you should take him seriously, not literally.
Right. And I will also say that the way Donald Trump left office after his first term, that was highly problematic.
Slightly.
I think all of us need to be concerned about the peaceful transfer of power in our country's future. I'm glad we're having this conversation perhaps earlier than later.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple options that have been rumored, reported on, that the Trump administration is looking at. J.D. Vance could run potentially as president, Donald Trump as vice president on the same ticket. If they were to win and be elected in 2028, J.D. Vance could resign the presidency, and Donald Trump as vice president would advance to the highest office. Concerns with that?
Well, I would have a hard time believing they could win with that as their ticket, meaning obviously if that's the strategy, people would blow that up.
Maybe see through that?
Yeah, see through that. Right?
And
I mean,
I don't think the courts would allow that to happen. I don't think election law, I don't think the 22nd Amendment would allow Trump to be a VP elected candidate on the ballot. I don't know for sure, though. Again, I am not an attorney. We need maybe another interpretation on that. But let's go to option 2, which is maybe a little more interesting. Donald Trump could become Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. Little known fact, you don't have to be an elected representative to be appointed Speaker of the U.S. House.
Yeah, correct. We learned that when McCarthy went down.
Right.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump, if indeed the House retains a majority, if the Republicans retain a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives in 2028, then they could legally appoint Donald Trump as Speaker of the U.S. House.
Yeah.
Then if Republicans also control the White House, whoever that would be at the time, they could then vacate the presidency and leave it to the line of succession, which would ultimately lead to the Speaker of the House becoming the President of the United States.
Okay. So here's a thought that I think would be a better strategy in the long run. If this were something you were entertaining, why take the bait? Like it's, these reporters said, hey, you want to run for third? I don't know why he's taking the bait. It seems like a better way to go about it would be, hey, I'm focused on doing my job for the American people. And you do such a good job.
Yeah.
Like his approval rating, like it or not, and all these people that are so frustrated with him, his approval rating is rock solid, right around 50%, even after all of what's gone on in the last month or two. Look at most of it, it's somewhere around that high 40s up to 50% if you pay attention to that, which is probably something you shouldn't do, but it's somewhere up there. Meaning, then why not do such a good job of good governance, good policies, all that stuff to where your policy your popularity has such momentum in your third and fourth year, then it's a natural question of, man, wouldn't it be great if you stuck around? Well, funny you should say that, and you go down versus now just, I don't know if he's trolling or joking or giving,
Well, Rusty, he did specifically say on the record he is not joking.
Okay, but I don't believe him.
Okay.
I mean, so like I said, I'm taking him seriously, not literally.
Yeah.
It seems like that would be a better route to go. But on the flip side, this could be the ultimate troll, right? You just leading people on to go down this path and distract from other things that you're working on. I don't know.
Yeah.
It
we know
odd.
This is Donald Trump's MO, President Trump. This is what he does historically. His model has been to put something completely outlandish out there.
Yeah.
Like, annex Greenland, for example. He will put
or the Riviera of the Middle East.
That's right. Gulf of Mexico becoming Gulf of America. Well, that's a political reality now. So
good point.
I'm just saying, he puts these things out there, right? Plants the seeds, and then a lot of these things can become reality, Rusty. So I don't want to discount this completely on its face. I don't want to not consider it. I'm not saying I'm in any way supportive. I agree with Senator Curtis that this should absolutely not happen.
Yeah.
Unequivocally, no. It's a hard no from me, right? But we should take Donald Trump seriously, if not literally, on this. And we should have this conversation now, if anything, maybe to discourage him.
Well, the other thing, too, is you better believe that there are tons and tons of Republicans and Democrats, for that matter, that are waiting in the wings.
Yeah,
that want to run for higher office. They are not. And these are the ones that would allow for something like this. They are not going to let you continue to stick around when they have aspirations themselves.
Well, if you're the Democrats, Rusty, this might be your most effective campaign talking point going into the presidential election in 2028.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. All right, in our final segment on today's Inside Sources, we're going to take our discussion to California.
Please, no.
The
Rusty,
land of great ideas. And talk about, what were you going to say?
Nothing.
Okay.
I'll save it.
Okay, save it because we're going to talk about one of the most blundered projects of all time for the government of the United States, the California High-Speed Rail Project. You're going to want to hear this. We'll be right back.
Robinhood Gold members can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions, a very handsome reward indeed. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive a 3% IRA boost on annual contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
Any Hour Services can help unclog any drain in your house, whether you have a backup, a clog, or a slow drain you want fixed. Call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Most of us like to be out in the sun. That's why sunscreen and other safety measures are key to protecting your skin from aging and cancer. The FDA recommends using a sunscreen with a sun protection factor, or SPF, of 15 or higher. Also, look for broad spectrum on the label. That means both harmful ultraviolet A and B rays are blocked. UVA rays age the skin, UVB rays burn, and both cause cancer. But the perfect sunscreen doesn't count if you use it wrong. Don't need sunscreen on a cloudy day? Wrong. 80% of UV rays still get through the haze. Only use sunscreen at the beach? Nope. Anytime you're outside, UV rays attack the skin, so you need protection. And you have to reapply sunscreen every 2 hours. Remember, SPF plus broad spectrum equal healthy fun in the sun. Visit www.fda.gov/sunscreen for more information. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Thinking about retirement? Make sure a My Social Security account is a part of your plan. A My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal earnings history and benefit status. You can find out if you're eligible to receive benefits, compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates, view spousal benefit estimates, and more. Plan for your future. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
When it comes to vaping, the truth can get clouded. So let's make it clear. Vaping is not safe for kids, teens, or young adults. It's just not.
Because vaping can put microscopic particles into your lungs.
And dangerous things like metals and volatile organic compounds into your body.
And nicotine, the same highly addictive substance found in regular cigarettes.
Nicotine can harm a person's brain development through their mid-20s.
Affecting learning, memory, attention, and impulse control, and priming the brain for other addictions.
Vaping products also come in kid-friendly flavors that can make them appealing to youth.
And many kids also use other drugs, like marijuana, in vaping devices.
With appealing flavors, high nicotine levels, and lots of promotion on social media,
many kids think vaping is harmless, but it's not.
So talk to your kids about the risks of vaping, because when you talk, they hear you.
For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. I'm here to warn you about telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Some of these scammers may say threatening things like you will be arrested if you don't make payments or provide personal information. Do not fall for these tricks. These calls are not from us. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you for information or money. If you receive a call like this, hang up. Never give the caller your personal information, like your Social Security number or bank account, or send money in any form, cash, gift cards, wire transfers, or prepaid debit cards. Report the call to our law enforcement arm, the Office of the Inspector General, at oig.ssa.gov. Share this information with your friends and family.
911, what's your emergency?
Someone on the other line said they kidnapped my son.
On September 12, 1995, McKay Everett disappeared from his home in Conroe, Texas.
There was no sign of forced entry. It was just as if McKay had walked out of his own free will.
And to this day, McKay's mother, Paulette, feels that justice was never truly served. Ransom is available now. Listen at ransompodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
For the low cost of only $40 billion, California set out to build a high-speed railway from San Francisco and Sacramento to Los Angeles and beyond. The opening date for that high-speed railway, it was supposed to be 2020. Now, the project cost has ballooned to more than $100 billion, and it will not open until 2030 at earliest. The system will not be fully operational until 2050. And don't forget also California now says that they're going to need another $7 billion on top of it all to finish the part that they're still working on today.
Yes. In fact, they were told, lawmakers were told recently that now they are $7 billion short of what it needs by next June. So there is some near-term risk to this. Now, before we get into further numbers, guess what line they've talked about trying to complete at some point here in the near term is actually a line from, I believe it was the middle of California to Bakersfield.
Okay, through the Imperial Valley, the Central Valley there.
Yeah.
To Bakersfield?
Yeah, and ask anyone that lives in Central California, if anyone.
Who's going to Bakersfield?
Will need to get on a train to Bakersfield. And the answer will be nobody.
I know
right?
Our producer, Andy, is from California. He might have some thoughts on this. I can't imagine. Rusty or Andy, please correct us if Rusty and I are wrong in thinking no one is going to Bakersfield.
I think you're right.
Is this the railway? In my ear, Andy, producer, just said, we are correct, Rusty.
All right.
For once.
All right, for once.
The railway to nowhere. This is a multi-billion-dollar boondoggle? What is happening in California?
You know, it's crazy. So it's called the HSRA, that stands for High Speed Rail Authority. They have, get this, they have spent $13.7 billion in total, including $1.6 billion on professional marketing materials and consultants. So let me pause right there. What consultants need $1.6 billion, and what kind of advertising do you need for a project that is failing to the tune of $1.6 billion?
I don't know, Rusty, but I want in on some of that. I don't want to move to California, though. Is there a way that I could get a piece of that project remotely? California legislature, I'm asking you.
The only partially completed segment so far connects a field and an orchard and has cost $1.4 billion for 22 miles of raised dirt, along with 11 overpass structures. 0, and let me repeat that, 0 feet of track have been laid to date. Doesn't that sound like a rousing success?
Rusty, I don't understand. Now, honest question. I don't know if we know the full history of this, Rusty, or you have this in your notes, but did this come about by a appropriation or legislation passed by the California legislature, or was this proposed and passed by the voters of California in one of their notorious statewide initiatives?
That is a great question. I'm hoping you have the answer because I don't.
The answer to that question, which is only coming to me in my ear from our producer Andy, who's from California, this was a initiative passed by the voters of California in 2008.
Way to go.
They essentially made this decision, called for this appropriation of their tax dollars. So, Rusty, no elected official in California is directly to blame for this. However, it's the voters of California that called for this, and I imagine they are the only reason why this project has not been stopped.
So hold on a second. Are you saying a citizen initiative might not have all the numbers, the T's crossed and the I's dotted properly on the financing of such an idea?
Rusty, don't try to put words in my mouth.
I am trying.
I am just saying initiatives in California are way too easy.
Yes.
Here in Utah, we have made initiatives very, very difficult. They are protected by the Utah State Constitution. Voters here in Utah have the ability to make or change policy via initiative or referenda. Mm-hmm. And a referendum right now, as we know, is ongoing.
Yes.
We'll see what happens with that. I believe that we should have those processes, but I also believe they should be incredibly difficult to qualify, to get on the ballot for something like that. And Rusty, this example of California is exactly why I feel that way. It should be incredibly difficult for voters to appropriate tax dollars and create policy. I believe that right should exist. But I do believe that there should be a very, very high bar to do so.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that. I think of a recent bill. In fact, we talked about it on the air the other day. Credit to Senator Fillmore for the bill that was passed. The governor did sign. There was some controversy around it, getting to almost this exact issue, to where now, going forward, a citizen initiative that proposes something that would that would affect taxes or funding, they're going to have to spell out how it's paid for.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is a good analogy of why that would be a good idea. Obviously, voters, hey, let's have a high-speed. Who wouldn't want a high-speed rail system to go from San Francisco to L.A.? I would get on it.
Yeah, as long as I don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, as long as I don't have to pay for it. Now look at what's happened. Just a total train wreck, pardon the analogy, but it's...
Rusty, no trains are even running yet, so inappropriate.
Yeah, so inappropriate, invalid, not up-to-date analogy. But I think that goes to another good policy that Utah is putting in place to keep something like this from happening. It also gets to the entire conversation is government good at doing big, bold projects.
Yeah.
And I think the I just forgot my proper English. The overwhelming consensus would be that it's not very good at it.
Yeah. And so presumably your position would be that private investment or private enterprise, if indeed they decided this project was even worthwhile, that would be the best way to go about doing something like this, right?
Correct. In fact, California, the original goal was that at least voters were told that more than 20% of the project would be privately funded. And instead, I'm quoting from the article, instead taxpayers face the reality of a single-handed funding massively inflated cost project that may never see completion.
Yeah. Well, we know, according to recent hearings in California, the state already has spent $14 billion on this project. And, as we mentioned at the top of the segment, Rusty, California needs more than twice that amount just to complete a small portion of this line, the Merced to Bakersfield segment. They hope that if they can get $15 billion more just for that segment, they hope to be able to actually finish that segment sometime between 2030 and 2033. Rusty, why aren't California voters doing something about this? Why hasn't there been, say, a referendum or an initiative in California to stop this railway boondoggle?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's too much going on there and there's not paying attention. I remember looking at last fall. I just don't have the specific number in my head right now, but I asked someone I knew in California how many ballot initiatives were on the ballot last November. I think it was at least 13.
Yeah.
So you think of voters going through 13 different issues aside from all the candidates that you're voting for and the language that's on there and just what a mess California is.
Yeah.
Ask anybody what it's like to try to plan a business or run a business or anything tied to the economy in California and how difficult it is. based on how this back and forth goes. I mean, keep in mind, this project in 2008 was, as you mentioned early in the segment, was pitched to voters that would be a $40 billion project. That budget is now up where around $120 billion. And then, as you mentioned, by the way, we need $7 billion really fast, or we're just going to basically run into a wall.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Rusty, not all California Assembly members are ignoring the problems with this. More and more we are hearing from members of the California Assembly like Stephen Bennett, Assembly member Alexandra Macedo, saying that it's just too expensive. And at this point, it is time just to abandon this project altogether because it is, quote, never going to happen.
But the good news is, in the meantime, they spent $1.6 billion on marketing and consultants.
Again, Assembly members, California legislature, I would love a piece of that if there's any budget remaining.
Yeah, I was going to say, somebody's made out
my
like a
rates
bandit.
Here in Utah are probably lower than other.
Are you just a little bit lower,
California.
not in that $1 billion range?
I can compete, Rusty.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for listening. Stay right here on KSL News Radio for Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News coming up next.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. It's 54 degrees. We have showers. KSL's top story. Mother Nature's about to give us a little bit of everything this afternoon. We're going to see 50-mile-an-hour wind out to the west. There's dust, rain, plunging temperatures, maybe even a little snow. KSL News Radio's Eric Cabrera is sorting it all out. He's driving around Tooele and is joining us live. Eric?
Jeff, I checked the KSL weather app before I left and noticed big storm clouds moving in from the west, so I decided to chase those dark clouds right into Tooele. Here at the Stansbury Crossing Shopping Center off North Highway 36. It's been wet and windy. The rain's coming down like bullets right now, and exactly the kind of weather we could be